Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to another episode of the Iron Life Podcast. I am your host, Chris Tutela, and I have an amazing episode and guest in store for you today. My guest on today's show is WWE champion, ECW champion, TNA champion, Mr. Monday Night himself, Rob Van Dam. Now, Rob and I had an amazing conversation. We dive into everything from the start of his career, coming up in ECW, his time that he spent in Japan, his time in the WWE, and also we talked about his CBD products, concussions, cannabis. We got a lot covered today in today's show, and you guys are going to really love it. But before we get into today's episode, I want to let you know about the Lean SOB project. So if you are a dad with a busy schedule who is trying to lose up to 25 pounds of body fat this year, then I want you to check this out, because I have a coaching program for you that is not only going to help you get that body fat off, but my goal for you is to keep that body fat off for good. So what I want to teach you is sustainability within your nutrition, within your training, so you could adopt the habits and the skills that are necessary for losing fat and keeping it off for good. If you're interested in working with me for 6 weeks, where I will personally coach you on your nutrition, on your lifestyle habits, on your conditioning, to teach you how to lose fat the right way and keep it off, then what I want you to do is head over to leansobproject.com and fill out an application. I only have 5 spots remaining, and the next class starts on January 24th. So if you want in, you're going to have to make sure you fill out an application ASAP. And from there, we're going to hop on a strategy call to discuss the program and to really see if it's a good fit for you. Because like I said, I don't just take anyone for this program. You have to meet certain requirements. You have to be serious. You have to be ready to take your health, your fitness, your training to the next level. So if you are ready and if you want to work with me personally for 6 weeks, then head over to leansobproject.com today and fill out an application. Now, here is my conversation with Rob Van Dam. Well, Rob Van Dam, welcome to the Iron Life Podcast, man. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to come on the show, dude.
Right on, man. Iron Cast. That sounds like weightlifting associated, or no?
Yep. Fitness, mindset, nutrition, the whole nine there.
Sweet. All right. That's an area I can relate to.
Yeah, totally, man. I got a ton of questions for you. I'm really excited to talk to you. And so look, I mean, obviously there's a lot about wrestling that I want to dive into here. So why don't we kick off kind of like what got you into wrestling back in the day? And how old were you when you started?
Well, just like most people, I was a fan first, and that was something that other kids dragged me into that were already into it. I got hooked. And then when I was at my first live WWF show, as it was, someone planted the seed in my head and told me that I love it so much I should start lifting weights or whatever and be a professional wrestler. So I was just focused on that for my last several years at school. And then when I graduated high school in '89, it was very important to me to get right into it, because everyone knew I was going to. Me and my friend, we were always in trouble, body slamming each other in the hallways and doing all kinds of, and other people. And so it was December of '89 that I actually stepped foot into a professional zone, which was the Sheik's wrestling school, and had a tryout and then became his student. Prior to that, I had done some wrestling in the ring, but it's not something that you count, or at least I don't count it in my pro career, although now it's probably not a lot different than what a lot of organizations are, if you want to call them that, are doing, because there's so many groups everywhere nobody's running right now with the COVID if they don't have TV. But I got into kickboxing because I wanted to be a wrestler. There was 4 of us kids. We'd beat each other up every Monday night, throw the cushions out on the floor from the couch, move the furniture and have at it. And we found this dude had a ring in town. So we went and knocked on his door and said, dude, we got to get in your ring, and we're fanatics and we're going to be pro wrestlers. And he ended up being a kickboxer. So I got into kickboxing through wanting to wrestle. And then, I did some kickboxing. And around this time, he would have shows that were at bars and outdoor parties, big festive events, a lot of alcohol and stuff. And sometimes challengers from the crowd that want to come in, and I was young and hungry, and that was my position, to be like, come on, let me fight again. I was taking the ring, actually me and my buddy Dango would tow the ring, sometimes set the ring up, set up some of the chairs. We'd start this show with a wrestling match, which was just us. We're like 17, I guess. Maybe a couple of them might have been a year younger. And we would open the show with us choreographing a match. I mean, we were doing a lot of shit. I would love to see footage of that, but I don't know if it exists or not. Every time someone tells me they have footage of it, it ends up being a dead end. One of my kickboxing coaches that I went to after this guy said, yeah, if you send my son some autographed pictures, I'll send you that. I'll send you the footage. I sent it, and then he was like, oh, you know what? I couldn't find it. So thank you, Terry Gay from Coldwater, Michigan. I really appreciate that. Anyway, that was how I broke in, dude. And we would have a tag match or 2 singles matches. I'd have a fight. I'd have an extra fight. We take the ring down, put it in the trailer, take it back to whoever's yard. And so that was all like before I ever stepped into the Sheik's ring and started my pro career. So I'm sure that, of course, helped me a lot,
Yeah. So when you started working under the tutelage, under the Sheik, was that pretty surreal for you?
No, it was kind of organic, really. Like I had not thought about anything other than that for several years. Like every single project in school became about wrestling. If it was something that I had freedom, whether it was, whether I had to do a speech in drama or a report in English, whatever, it was wrestling. Everybody knew it. Not many people, were like, I'm sure you are going to make it. You know what I mean? So we had our share of the naysayers and had to swim upstream, and it's not traditional. There was nothing in school that prepared you as far as from a premeditated attack anyway to be a professional wrestler. You look at your career choices, it wasn't on there. And it wasn't something that they were prepared to send you off into the world to pursue. But obviously I did all right with it.
Yeah.
It was,
I
don't think real, you know what I mean? It was like the original Sheik. A lot of people think of the Iron Sheik, who was a copy of the original Sheik, he was an old man when I met him, in his 70s, top box office attraction from the 50s and 60s. And I hadn't really watched him, so it wasn't like I was meeting Hulk Hogan or something like that, who for me would have been surreal at that point because, I grew up on the 80s WWF guys. Hey, stop it. And I had to learn about him, but then I learned what a big star and how credible he was, because credibility, who they had trained before, their experience, how long they'd been around, that was all important. I looked at a lot of wrestling schools. A lot of them were open and closed in a couple of days after they took everybody's money and run by yahoos that didn't know what they were doing, and hadn't been anywhere. So I did my homework, did a lot of research. I actually had a scholarship to go to college, Michigan State, and decided instead, to pursue this career. So a lot of people don't know, but I actually have a brain. I just haven't used it much when I'm saying whatever, dude. But I do think about everything. I spend most of my time in my head. So made the right decisions. Boom, 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 and here I am, 30 years later.
That's amazing, dude. And you were signed with WCW before ECW, is that right?
Yes, way before. It was December of '92, and I got into WCW because Ron Slinker, who was my my friend, he was the guy I was working for at that time. I'm sure he would like to consider himself a mentor. He named me Rob Van Dam. I went down to Florida in '91, 20 years old. Went down there, ended up staying with him on his floor of his apartment. It was overcrowded with him and his stepwife and his stepson, who's a big wrestler. Most hardcore fans remember anyway. Tex Slazenger, Dennis Knight, he lived there. And Ron Slinker is the guy I'm talking about. He was a wrestler as well. Obviously, his son lived there. It was so many people, these little yippy dogs, and it really was an uncomfortable position. But I was paying my dues during that time. That guy gave me the name Rob Van Dam. He might have been the person to tell me that I was going to be a world champion. Also,
Wow.
When he saw me, he saw me in '91 in USWA, and that was within my first year of wrestling. So, he told me that, and he was like. He goes, I might be wrong about you. He said, I wasn't wrong about Ricky Steamboat. I wasn't wrong about Rick Rude, or Randy Savage. I got the same feeling about you, kid. You're going to make it. So that was cool. I got told that a lot in the next following years. Not a lot, but I mean, there was other people that stick out, to make that secure in my head that was a possible path. But Slinker also got me the job in WCW because he was good friends with Bill Watts. So I had a tryout, but unless I really fucked it up, I was going to be working for them after that December special underdog challenge match. So I was in WCW for about 5 months. In May of '93, I split on my own. I hated it while I was there, even though I was young and super green, but I never knew how green I was, like that's something I wish I could have been in more connection with reality of viewing myself. You know what I mean? Like I thought if anyone called me green, I thought that was a put down, even though I'd only been wrestling a year or two, the way I looked at it, I'm not green, I'm better than him.
Right.
That's just how I looked at it back then. And so I wasn't as open to advice because I was trained that way. I was trained like, hey, you're better than everyone else. Fuck those guys. They're going to try and put their touch on you, but they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. That's what Sheik always told me. So I was always like standoffish with other people's advice. And I'm glad though, because it ended up making me like way different, one of a kind. And had I listened and morphed into what a lot of other people would have had me change into, I would have been more status quo, no doubt about it.
What were they trying to change you into, like in WCW? Was it your style? Was it the gimmick? Like what was it?
Always everything, dude. Everything I do, like I think different out of the box. So like everybody has always said, that my wrestling, I've had a lot of people tell me that they didn't think it was credible till they were in the ring with me. Stan Henson even one time said, he used to always give me a hard time. He'd be talking about, well, tag me back in. Let me see if I can get people believing in wrestling again. But then I was in the ring with him and he realized that I was shooting. I wasn't like pre-calling shit where I'm saying, hey, Stan, I need you to hold my foot. We'll count to 3. I mean, that's what they do now. Right. They took it. A lot of the stuff the guys do now wouldn't have worked back then. But I had Stan in the corner, giving a couple of shots. I'd jump up and do a backflip, run at him, kick him in the face. Afterwards, he was like, I had no idea where you were. You were there, and then you just disappeared because he's blind. But more specifically, since you ask about WCW, this comes to mind. Rip Rogers. He had to work with Green Robbie V on the road for a loop that he had obviously set up because he was the local boy around Indianapolis and some of the towns around there. So we were on a loop And I think he didn't like that he had to put me over. And he would tell me, you do all these kicks, all these flips and everything. It doesn't mean anything. One kick, just save it. Do one kick at the end. Use that as your finish. Now it means something. Now it's special. And he'll back that up. Now, if anyone asks him, he'll say, yeah, that's exactly the way he thought. But obviously I went a different route, and I did so much stuff, but I did it different. Like I say, I did it within the confines of the wrestling unwritten rules. I had to make it fit. If I'm going to drop a leg on you, bro, you don't need to know that I'm going to jump up and do a 360 spin before I drop the leg. You know what I mean? That doesn't take a script. I never needed that. And I mean, there's exceptions to everything. If I throw you a chair, in order to hit the Van Daminator, you got to catch it. But if you don't catch it, I'm just going to kick you in the face. You know what I mean? So that one's but anyway, that comes to mind, that Rip Rogers was, he wanted to change me in that way, so that then the people would really get behind that one kick. And I'm like, dude, I got so many special moves. All my moves are going to be special. And I'm going to hit you with the big special move at the end too, which at the time was the split-legged moonsault. And I changed that around that time because it wasn't impactful enough. These guys were a lot bigger than me. Split-legged moonsault was pretty, but it was a soft move. So Ron Swinker said, come up with something else. And I was like, I guess the hardest I can hit somebody is to jump up as high as I possibly can and just come down with all my weight on them. And so I changed it to the frog splash, which now I've come up with the Van Terminator since then. And that's even harder because, not only is it my weight and momentum, but I have the power of my legs to drive too. So that was, an advanced finishing move. But that's how it came together, dude. And that's one of the many ways people tried to change me. Later on, they didn't like how cool and laid back I was because that was different. Every promoter, not every, but it seems like many times I'd reach a point where they want to see me mad. We just want to see RVD lose this cool one time, and take your ponytail and throw it out and now you're pissed. Like, promoters always believed there was money in that. And I was always like, well, I feel like if I lose control of my emotions, I failed myself, and they had got me hot a couple of times on purpose. And Katie will back this up. I'm not good at changing my vibes that good. If I get pissed, sometimes it takes me days to come down.
Got it. So let's switch here and let's now transition into ECW. So it's funny because I remember, dude, I must have been 10 years old, and one of my buddies, his name is Harry, he's like, dude, you got to see this shit called this organization ECW. He's like, it's crazy, man. And I remember one night we stayed up late and we watched, because it was on Saturday nights, right? So we stayed up late. We watched whatever it was. I can't remember the match exactly, but I just remember the carnage, the tables, the chairs, like everything was so high flying. And he's like, dude, you got to see this guy Sabu and Tommy Dreamer and RVD. And it was like stuff you've never really seen before. So talk to me a little bit about that and the early days of ECW.
Well, I got turned on to it the same way. I had that car crash appeal. So like I'm flipping through the channels, and I knew that Sabu was working for this group, out of the tri-state area, but I didn't know much about him, except for he was trying to get me booked there. He kept saying, did Paul call you this week? I'm like, no. He's like, what? That motherfucker was supposed to call you. Let me call you back. And that happened like a lot. And I was just like, whatever.
So you guys knew each other before?
Sabu?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I left a big part out of me getting into the business. So December 1989, I ended up going to the Sheik's Wrestling School because I was bagging groceries at the time. There was this huge 315-pound power lifter that came through that I befriended and told him about my dreams. And he brought me to the Sheik. This guy's Tom Bennett. In case he's listening, say my name, motherfucker. Anyway, Tom introduced me and that I had the tryout, but the Sheik was an old man. He was sitting in a chair beside the ring, and he had me in the ring with this skinny-legged hippie, And I didn't know what the guy would, he would say, lock up. I didn't even know exactly what a lockup was, you know, like somehow we left that out of our choreographed matches at 16. I don't know, but he was grabbing me and he was testing me. I didn't even know what to do, but he was pushing and pulling and jerking me around. And he was trying to test, you know, my leverage and all kinds of stuff, but I didn't understand it. And we did that for a while, you know, pushed me against the ropes and testing my counter ability and all this. And then after a while, he was like, okay. And he's like, Terry, get out of the ring. And that was Sabu. He was Terry at the time.
Wow.
So my very time in the ring, in a pro ring, was with Sabu. He had already been around the Sheik's nuts for like 6 years at that point. Not really like on TV, changing his character names sometimes or whatever, but working when the Sheik would work, carrying his bags, you know, like doing all that stuff. So he taught me arm drags and drop kicks, and I ended up teaching him, you know, like backflips and stuff like that. So it was pretty cool. But so I've always known Sabu, and so he's trying to get me booked into ECW, but I had a regular job at All Japan Pro Wrestling. I started there in '93, and I started at like I think it was $2,000. I don't know if it was $2,000 or it was. I think it was $2,000 a week that I started at, and at the same time I was wrestling at the Tampa Sportatorium every Thursday night for $35. So pretty significant price difference, right? And so when they called me to ECW, I was like, dude, I could totally take it or leave it. All Japan was saying, name your tours, you know, tell us when you want to come back. And I didn't really like it over there, but I liked the money. I could go over there for a tour and I could live for a long time doing whatever I wanted because my expenses were pretty low at that time.
Yeah.
But yeah. And so when Paul did finally call, he tried to book me working with Mikey Whipwreck. I think it was going to give me $200 or something like that. And, you know, he wanted me to put Mikey over. And I was just like, all right, man, I appreciate the call. I'm good. Thanks. You know?
Right.
So next time Sabu said, did he call you? I'm like, yeah, it didn't work out. What do you mean it didn't work out? It's like, that motherfucker, what did he offer you? And then so I ended up going up there, and Sabu always was like he was always my big brother. You know, at that time, I listened to whatever he said. His word was bond. First time I went into the ECW dressing room, he's pointing at all the guys, you know, Eliminators, Dudleys, Axel, Balls, you know, all these guys. And he's telling me, you know, what's up. And I'm just taking it as fact because that's what I did at that time. You know, Sheik taught me that way. Don't listen to anybody else. You don't know what the fuck they're talking about. You listen to me. Right. So I listened that way. And Sabu would say, oh, those guys suck, you know, these guys they think they're great, you know, that you know they don't know what they're doing. These guys here are probably the most popular team, blah blah blah. He says, we're way better than everybody. So he had that in my head the whole time. And you know, it was I was so young as an adult, you know, even like in my 20s that you know, I had a lot of growing up to do, but those were really fun times.
Yeah. So the matches that you were having in Japan, were they similar to the ECW type matches? Is it like the Japan matches that we all know, like Mick Foley and those guys back in the day?
No, night and day. There was one group over there called FMW that was doing shit like that, hardcore matches. The All Japan Pro Wrestling was basically that would be like the WWE of Japan at the time. There used to be one big wrestling group until I think 1973, and Ricky Doza split off, and then there was two. There was All Japan and New Japan, which is very much like WWF and WCW. Inoki ran New Japan, Giant Baba ran All Japan, and so I went, got booked because of Brady Boone via Lord Blair's. That was cool as hell, by the way. Brady Boone saw me in Florida. I'm 22 years old at this time, green as can be, you know, and he's just like, man, have you ever been to Japan, Rob? And I'm like, no, I would love to go. He's like, oh, they would love you over there with all the martial arts moves and flips. Man, they eat that stuff up. And I was like, dude, I'd love it. He made a couple calls for me. I sent a videotape, boom, I'm booked over there, So Brady Boone, that's something that, I always got to give credit for. That was so cool of him. And he didn't have to do that. A lot of guys are the other way. They're like selfish and, they don't want anyone else, knocking them out of their position or their job, and you could say that's how you have to be, which to an extent, I had to have a very competitive mind throughout my whole career that I don't have now. And I could go on for an hour on how my perspective has changed in ways that has improved my life, my outlook, my zen, because I don't live in the wrestling world completely like I did before when I was traveling 6 days a week. So that was part of it, though, is that and then when I went to All Japan, it was more competitive. It was very, very athletic. There was only like one guy that painted his face. That was one guy, and there was two eventually, but that was because they tagged. We had a Kamala 2, and we had a Izimuto. He painted his face. That was it. It wasn't all about gimmicks and characters. I never did an interview, a promo when I was there. Yeah. It was, you get in the ring, and it was, and like, even if we had a chance, to think about what we were going to do for the last half of the match, the first half of the match was, you working out, get in there, and you were actually, bam, headlock, reverse. Usually the older guys would let the younger boys start out the match, and we'd be doing all kinds of stuff. But that stuff was, all on the fly, and it was like a whole different kind of competitive wrestling, and I don't think people can understand that are fans now that think they know what it's like. To give you an example, like Sabu he used to wrestle for that FMW that you're talking about, where they did explosion matches, barbed wire, fire, light bulb, piranha.
Piranha matches.
Yeah. Came over to All Japan, and we were tagging, and I remember a night we were wrestling against Akiyama and Amori, and both of our teams were jockeying for those titles, like we wanted them and they wanted the titles too, and we were trying to, and it was a shoot, trying to stick out to the promoter and the crowd. People don't understand where that competition really is. Like, we wanted them to say, hey, boom, you guys got the tag belts tonight, you go. And so Sabu and I would have this talk beforehand, not with Akiyama and Amori, with ourselves. And Sabu would say, hey, try and keep them close to our corner the whole match, like as much as possible. Like, if I'm in there with the guy and he starts going towards the other corner, or come in anytime somebody covers me, come in and make the save, boom, right away. And anytime someone gets me in a hold, come in and make the save. I'll do the same for you. Let's make a lot of quick tags and try and blow them up. In other words, get them winded, which is not a professional thing to do if you're working with each other and just playing like the fans want to think we are when they think, oh, that looks so fun. But that competitive out there, we're trying to blow them up, they're trying to blow us up, they're trying to mess up some of our moves to make us look bad. And we were on the same page, kind of doing the same to them, making competing while having the match together. And that's just the way that it was over there. It was so competitive, and I loved it. I loved the style. I didn't like being over there. I never really liked the food. I was homesick. Didn't like the 10-hour bus rides and all that stuff. But the matches, I learned so much. I really learned when I first went over there. The older guys like Kawada, they beat the shit out of me all the time. And at first I took it personal, like, well, I don't know, he's an asshole, he's not being professional. And then after a while, as I grew a little bit, I was like, fuck that dude, man, I'm gonna give it right back to him. And I started like really getting him back. And then I realized that's what they wanted. They can't be selling my weak ass shit. It disrespects them, the whole sport, everything. They're not gonna even fucking do it. So that's what it was all about, is you couldn't be too stiff over there. It was way, way stiffer. Everybody knew that, the American wrestlers. Now, if you go to Japan, it's a real stiff style. That was a long time ago. Don't know what it's, it's been a while since I've been over there. And of course, all the organizations, have changed since then. But that's how it was, when Kabashi or Misawa was really cool though. He was our favorite, but Kawada, Taue, when these guys were in here with you, and if you're a young boy, they're going to hurt you. They knew I was flexible. So anytime someone pile drive me or power bomb me or suplex me, it was always going to be right on the back of my head, and it was within me, that spirit within me to say, screw them. I'm going to lay on the back of my head and bounce my knees off the mat and show them they can't hurt me. And that was a lot of, my competitiveness, my ego, but also, my self-damaging way of approaching what I was doing.
Right.
I beat myself. I put everything into it so that, you slam me, I feel the mat, I saw the fucking mat hitting my back. And a lot of people, don't move like RVD. But that's how I react. That's what's natural to me, and I do enjoy, I enjoy it, but I'm not wrestling. I can't see me going back to full time right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
But money talks. So
so you never know. I hear that. Okay,
yeah.
so then when you get to ECW now, and then transitioning to that style, what was that like for you?
Well, I was pretty intimidated when I had seen the commercials, just like you at late night TV, the ring's like on fire, all the fans are throwing chairs into the ring at the wrestlers. I was like, holy shit. Like, how can you turn the channel? Like, I was just glued to it. But as far as being there, I was intimidated. I was in Georgia at the time, 25, and right. Yeah. Boom, 20. Yeah, I just turned 25 before my first time at ECW. And down there, I mean, it was about, being cheesy, and being like, USA, come on, everybody, let's get behind me here. And then all of a sudden, this was like a complete change up. No kids in the audience, just like a rock and roll audience crowd. Everyone's wearing black shirts, waiting for you to slip. It's like, you fucked up. You fucked up. It was very intimidating. I was like, I got out a pen and paper and I was thinking like, I need some new moves. I need some hardcore moves. Like, what can I do with the chair? And I was like writing this stuff down before my first match, like maybe what if I like threw a chair up and then jumped up and did like a jumping, spinning back kick. And I wonder if I could like kick the chair into my opponent's face. And I was like, well, I'll write it down. Who knows? Maybe.
Yeah. So what was it like kind of like backstage? Was it as competitive as it was in Japan? I'm sure that you had a lot of that competitiveness and guys trying to get to the top and whatnot. So what was that like?
There was a lot more camaraderie. There was a lot more support. I had a match with Sabu. I think it was our first match out there. And, we tore it up like we usually would because we'd been wrestling each other, around the world or whatever different. And so we just had like a normal match. And when I came back through the curtain into the dressing room, all the boys were standing and clapping, like they were the fans. I didn't understand it. It confused me, and I don't know, I felt awkward. I walked right by everybody to the back of the room. I remember it was just really weird for me. And then Sabu came back afterwards, and it's like, hey man, you good, whatever. I was like, dude, when I came back, I go, everybody was like clapping. What was that about? What I missed? And he goes, no, they just do that. He goes, that was a normal match for me and you, but they're clapping because they think that was, that was like a great match for them. And they're showing us their appreciation. I'm like,
wow,
really? Like, I couldn't believe they did that. It was so weird to me. But at the same time, there was competition, but there was like a pretty solid line. And it was mostly what I saw. It was just mostly between Sabu and Taz, which was the angle that they were always building for years. They were building those two touching each other. And then RVD shows up. Now all of a sudden, boom, RVD fights Taz, beats him. What? He's never been beaten. Sabu was supposed to be the first guy. Taz was all hurt about it. What was happening in the storyline was also kind of happening behind the scenes as well too. Mm. And like, I obviously hung out with Sabu. All he did all the time, most of us, was make fun of Taz's little I don't even know what you call them, little little funny, quirky things that he would do. You know what I mean? Like he would try to protect the color orange, and half of it I don't even know if it really happened, but Sabu would tell us that he'd say like he went up to Cronus and said, "Brother, that better not be orange, is it?" And then we'd all laugh, and that would be our line. We'd say it to each other, "Oh, that's not orange, is it? Don't be wearing orange." And we had a blast out of just making fun of him, but it was obviously because they had mutual respect for each other as well. But in the dressing room, Taz, when I first got there, he had himself surrounded with a bunch of guys in a circle standing around him in the dressing room, Team Taz. And if you wanted to talk to Taz, you had to ask one of his people to get him in the middle of this circle that's 4 feet deep. And he would be like just warming up, like getting off. Whoa, shit, sorry, dude. He'd be getting up like hours before the show, like he was in serious mindset. And to us, that was hilarious. So we would make fun of that, you know. And it was kind of like, for me, that was like the two sides, you know, of the dressing room. But you know, I've talked to Taz about it. He didn't even like realize a lot of that was going on because, you know, he respected Sabu, and I know he was hurt that I came in and and all of a sudden I took a lot of, you know, I did that a lot of times in my career. Would take someone's plans change, you know, whatever. But that was similar to Japan in the way that when Gary Albright was in Japan, he hated Johnny Ace so much. John Laurinaitis, who's became the head of the CEO talent in WWE, Johnny Ace was office. He was a stooge. That's all that's all Gary ever said about him. He's a stooge. And so the front of the bus would be like Johnny, Del Wilkes, Doug Furness, whatever. The back of the bus was what we called the hoods. And, you know, that would be me and Dr. Death, Steve Williams, Johnny Smith when he was there. The guys, you know, that were similar minded. You know, we'd get to town to a building, and the office guys, you know, they might go and have coffee and talk about business or whatever. We're like, dude, where can we get hash in Nagoya? You know that guy, right? You know, and that was just the separation. And so it was similar to that, you know, in that way. But, you know, I don't even know if Johnny knew all the times, but Gary would just be in the back bus going, I fucking hate that guy. I fucking hate him. That was like serious. Like, I don't know why he hated him so much, but Gary had issues, and Johnny definitely became a target.
Got it.
Yeah.
Wow.
One time there was a wrestler named Jungle Jim Steele, 285-pound bodybuilder physique. Jim Rocha, good guy. One time we're in Roppongi, the hoods, and we're coming out of what was it, Hard Rock Cafe in a big gang, and all of a sudden Gary just stops. I'm not going anywhere with him. And he points to Jimmy, and like, dude, what? He's Ace's boy, man. I saw him earlier in the restaurant with Ace. We're not going anywhere with him. He's probably going to tell on us. Like, what? And Jim's like, Gary, he goes, I like Johnny. Yeah, I like you too. I get along with everybody. Gary went smacked him so hard right in front of everybody. It was like that was serious. Like he was, like I said, Gary had issues.
Yeah.
You know, I think it was his first night in. He came over from UWF, which is more of a shoot group. And I think his first night when he came into All Japan, we were at a restaurant/bar that night. And after some drinks and stuff, he's down on his knees with his arms behind his back, yelling at some guy, "Come on, pussy boy. Come on, do something."
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Makes for a lot of memorable nights, I suppose. But yeah. So speaking of being memorable, what would you say your most memorable matches are in ECW, strictly in ECW?
Well, so I had a series of matches with Sabu that I thought, you know, were progressively more enjoyable. That was what ECW was about. Was always Extreme Wrestling wasn't just about, okay, you know, people are going to bleed and there's going to be, you know, broken tables. What I recognized, it was about outdoing itself every time and continuing in that direction, which obviously you can't do forever. But I couldn't believe how Paul was able to do that at all, but he was. My first show at ECW, I was like, oh my God. The first TV show in Philly. I was like, crowd was so excited. I was like, how are they possibly going to top that? There's no way. Like, that was going to go down in history as the best, live show they've ever had. 3 weeks later, we're at Philly again. And then this time, I'm watching the matches. A real exciting part comes up. Boom, the lights go out. Oh, my God, what a feeling that was for the first time. Everyone's screaming, like, what the hell? The lights come on. Someone else is in the ring. The crowd's like, yeah. Boom. I was like, oh, my God, they went further. And Paul was always able to do that. So I don't know how many of my fans were following, but that's what I was doing, too. I used to run and dive over the rope and not touch the rope. That was fun for me. It was very heavy for people to catch, so some people wouldn't bother. Thank you, Lance. And then eventually I put a chair there and I would jump over the chair and the rope. Then I put 2 chairs there and I jumped over 2 chairs and the rope. The same thing with the Van Daminator. It was a chair to the face, and then I was crouching him on the rope, coming off the top rope in the corner, seeing how far I could jump with it. Then it was the Van Terminator. Me and Fonz used to play hot potato with the chair, throw it back and forth, then throw it to the guy. And we were always trying to outdo ourselves. Those series of matches I had with Sabu, I came in, wrestled him, didn't shake his hand. Then we had a matter of respect match, didn't shake his hand. We had we had a stretcher match that night that the ropes broke and the show was on till 2 a.m. and Kimono won a leg dance. We had a series of matches that always stick out. My matches with Jerry Lynn, same thing. Yeah. First time I wrestled him, nobody expected it to go off like it did. We just had an amazing chemistry. So I was like, yeah, I want to keep wrestling that guy over and over. Those will always stand out. Wrestling Bam Bam Bigelow, of course. And because of that famous footage of me diving into the crowd, that's always going to be in everybody's minds, I think. But there's a lot more, but those are some of the ones that instantly stand out.
Got it. And now, Rob, what was the transition like then, going from ECW and spending all that time there to then going to the WWE?
Well, I mean, it's a pretty significant change, and no matter how prepared you are for the schedule that WWE had you on, there's no way you could actually fathom what it's like traveling like every day, like getting to 4 or 5 different towns, getting to your home, getting from your home on 2 different days that don't even count. It was like, you get caught in this machine and you're just like boom, 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 boom. Like, there goes your life. It was a big change, but the political scenery was hard for me to adapt to. Not as hard as some people, but I always rejected it, and I'm sure shot myself in the foot, several times because of that, because I just repelled from the thought that I needed to improve my relationships with anybody instead of just letting my talent speak for itself. Now I have a more mature view on it, and I'm like, well, yeah, of course, you're working with these people. They got to know they can trust you. You're not going to screw up if you're the face of their company or if you're representing them. And I mean, I can see it now from a more mature view, but back then I was like, dude, it's my wrestling that got me here. I just want to get as far as that can get me. And then when I hit my head on that glass ceiling, I'm fine with that. Boom. I'm sure I never would have been world champion had I not changed the entire playing field by bringing ECW back. But I remember when I was in ECW, I literally had the freedom and ability to feel not just like I participated in the show, but I could feel like I gave all these fans their money's worth. That was just really rewarding for me back at that time in my career. Fans in ECW would be chanting RVD throughout the whole show sometimes, even though I'm on last, during other people's matches sometimes. And then when it would happen, it was a big deal. Fonzie would be blowing his whistle for a while before we even come out. He'd come out through the curtain and they know that I'm coming out next. So we build up some anticipation. I'm back there doing jumping jacks or push-ups. And I'm like, all right, I'm ready. Come through the curtain, boom, and then I always wanted to go 20, 30 minutes. I always wanted to give them the whole fucking show, regardless of how many people were in the crowd, whatever. So now, boom, now I got to adjust to, I'm in a tag match. We're going 4 minutes, including our entrances. And I was just like, how how am I going to be able to give my fans what they need? I mean, that's really how I felt.
Yeah.
I was talking to Jerry one time, and I was like, to Jerry, this sucks, right? Like before we could boom do everything. Now, 4 minutes tag man, I'm probably gonna have 30 seconds to a minute to get my shit in. Like this is horrible, right? To Jerry, he'd been there longer than me, and he'd already adjusted.
Yeah.
He goes, photo better. I'm like, what? Dude, what do you mean? Are you serious? Don't you miss, being able? He goes, shorter, better. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God, the Jerry sold out, but after probably like 6 months or so, realizing if I do a run in and a kick off the top rope in the main event, I'm going to get paid more than working my ass off on the opening match. After a while, I was like, shorter, better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were those matches was that hard for you to adapt to though? Like going from maybe 20 minutes to 4 minutes, including the entrances.
Yes, it was very hard as an artist because I felt like I didn't do enough.
Yeah.
It wasn't self-gratifying if I felt like, because I would get feedback, and those ECW fans, like they loved me. I had that connection, and I was confident. Hey, when I was doing a promotion, hey, come to the Golden Dome, the Beaver Dome, whatever, ECW's pay-per-view, guarantee it. Yeah, I can guarantee this alone is going to be worth the price of the ticket. But I really felt like that. I was like, hey, regardless of the rest of the show, I know I'm going to crush it. I know they're going to love what I'm doing. I got this crowd figured out. I really felt like that. And then from there, all of a sudden, it felt like my agenda changed as a career, as my job. I felt like what my job is different now, because before I felt like all of my efforts were helping this company that was on the grow move. I was giving them, movement. I was giving,
push.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh wait, I'm not even on tonight's show. Like, you guys don't give a shit about me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just
right. And what would you say your most memorable WWE match / moment was for you?
I beating John Cena for the ECW World Championship for sure.
That was what was that, one night stand or something like that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, when you're booing Cena out of the arena, right?
Yeah,
yeah,
of course. And he knew they would. That was my.
Sure.
That was. There was so much about that match that I can't imagine replacing that with another match as my top. It wasn't just because it was the apex, or hey, I'm world champion. It wasn't about that. It was about the fact that the whole thing was happening because I stuck to my guns regardless of the Rip Rogers of the world telling me only do one kick a match. I stuck to my guns the whole time. Everybody tried to change me, and because of that, because of the success that I had, and because I had that nonstop love and connection with the hardcore style, I went to Vince with the idea of doing ECW as a pay-per-view, and so I'm just saying, if it wasn't for me changing the entire field and being able to do ECW where I was best utilized and showcased the best, if it wasn't for that, coming onto the WWE stage, I'm sure I wouldn't have been world champ. And that night was 100% everything I stood for versus 100% what Cena and the WWE wrestling stood for. And so I was able to, really, like I said, stick to my guns. That's the best way to describe it. I just kept to what I believed in. Kept getting those ECW chants, at the WWE show, and I kept catering towards my people. So because of all that, and it was a hell of an accomplishment when you can say, hey, I helped, spawn this idea of bringing a company to a third brand. You know what I mean? We had a third brand now because of that. That was a pretty big accomplishment as far as feeling like I've made a difference in history, because of all that, and because I was the top guy to represent ECW. That match, and the match was killer anyway. I loved that match with Cena. Cena's like definitely one of, if not the best. And so there's a reason he was champ for so long and top guy, and reason he makes so much money. And so, he really understood that ECW crowd. It wasn't a surprise to him.
Yeah. So awesome, man. And who would you say your top 3 to 5 guys are to be in the ring with? Everybody needs a good dance partner, right? So, like, who are your top guys to be in there with?
Sabu, Jerry Lynn, Jeff Hardy, Rey Mysterio. I don't know. I'm gonna say Booker T, just because we were such good friends. There's something special about being able to go out into the ring and work with the guy, whether you're wrestling against him or whether you're tagging with him, when he's like your best friend at that time, and you're actually leaving and getting in the car together, and stuff like that. That doesn't happen very often. So I'm going to throw him on there, because those are my 5 that pop up.
Got it. And for when the stars align for you, like, what makes what does it really take to create like that magic in the ring, like your best art, so to speak, as far as your opponent, right? Do you like the guys that are fast paced? Is it guys that you're friends with? Is it guys where you hate each other? Like, what makes the best matches for you personally, at least?
Right. Well, it's the story, man. It's always all about the story, and you can't just think about like, I want to do this move, then this move, and then this move. You have to imagine like how that translates, and if you're watching that, what is happening, in the story. It's not like if you're thinking like this kick and then this kick and this kick, but to the fans, they're like, oh, this guy's beating the shit out of this guy. That's how it translates. And so it's the whole story, and being able to be creative about it and use everything that you have in your tool set to be able to it's great. I sometimes do stand-up comedy, and I enjoy writing the material. I enjoy, like, what am I? Oh, I'm going to do 10 minutes. So in my mind, I know about when 10 minutes is up. Boom, boom, boom. And I think of all these, and I'm predicting exactly how the crowd's going to react, to it and stuff. Then when you go out there with wrestling and with stand-up, and then you deliver, and then you get that reaction, and the better you are at it, the more you can predict and receive the reaction that you're expecting. That's a good payoff. You know what I mean? That's what's enjoyable about it. Is it's like, man, at this point, I want to get them to really believe, that the match is going to be completely over. But at that very last second, boom, I want to really get them to be like, holy shit. And it's not as easy to get now, because these guys nowadays, you hit somebody with your finisher 4 times, and then they kick out and stand up, and it's a lot. I don't even. It's a lot different now, and it's going. I don't know, but it's going in a direction anyway. But so, every time you're in the ring with somebody, it's a compromise. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes I like it when I'm wrestling somebody and they are completely, they got zero in mind, and they're like, dude, I'll just listen to you out there. Sometimes that's the best, I'm like, awesome, because I know then I can, because if someone else comes up and they have a bunch of ideas, then it's like, oh, I got to try to make that make sense, and I don't agree with this or that. That's why I say it's always a compromise. If I'm in there with someone like Jeff Hardy, we both have the same idea of like what's cool. Oh man, boom, boom, boom. Yeah, that would be awesome. Bam, that would be sweet. Boom, dude. Oh, this move and this move, like, bam. It's like it's better when it's like-minded. If you're in there with someone else that's saying, how about we save, one kick for the end, or whatever. There's people that have completely different approaches. Sometimes it's like, oh God, I got this guy. He likes to. He doesn't like to do he likes to keep it on the mat, doesn't like to fly. It's always, I learned a long time ago, in order to be the best in the business, you got to be the most consistent regardless of who you're wrestling against. So that became more important to me than, hey, I love an easy night. And when you're over 300 days a year working, it's great. If you can wrestle against the same guy, sometimes several nights in a row. And then sometimes, you both have an idea of what to expect from the other guy. Sometimes, sometimes the challenge of meeting people in the ring that don't even speak the same language as you, and going from that point, sometimes that's more of an enjoyment. But it really depends. It's all the story and how the story comes out, and you got at least two, depending on how many people are in the match. You got at least a couple of different minds that aren't the same. So you're going to be thinking, you're going to gel on some ideas, and some ideas you're going to be like, you're going to be compromising. I don't really like that, but maybe I'll do that because then I'm going to do this. I'll make it. I'll get him with this. He didn't want to do this, but that's the work, and I've never liked it. If you talk to, this isn't professional. I'm not bragging. This isn't a very good work ethic, but if you ask probably almost anybody that's worked with me, at least for the last 20 years, you can't find me until the match time.
Right.
That's work. That's work. I don't want to be punched in and have to start thinking about, it's like, I'm going to go off on my own. I'm going to stretch. I'm going to prepare, do what I do, get the right state of mind, and so that I can approach it and be at my best when I go ahead and attack the game plan. And other people, they want to know the day before, who am I working tomorrow? And it's like, oh God, please don't tell me. It stresses me out when someone tells me that.
Okay. So you just like to show up and then just go to work?
Well, pretty much. It's what I used to do routinely when I was in WWE. We had a 1:00 call time, right? So I used to show up at 1:00. I'd go to catering and make sure everybody sees that I'm at the building, and I would eat, and then I would take off. I'd be gone by 1:30 or 2, and I'd be gone till it used to be 4. Then it was 4:30. Then it was 5. And, doors open pretty soon. And once doors open, you don't have the ring to walk over anything anymore or whatever, which I love because I wasn't taught to get in the ring and walk over shit. Like, what are you guys talking about? There's people here. There's people building people. Sheik would choke me out if he thought I was in the ring talking to somebody before a match when there's security watching us up in the stands and the camera guys and shit. It was just, I'm more old school, but I would leave. I would find a gym. I would go to the gym and work out. I'd go find a tanner. If they didn't have a tanning bed there, I would tan, roll me up a doobie, drive around smoking it. By the time I got, to the building at 5, it was usually like, hey, oh, there you are. So-and-so's been looking for you, so-and-so. And then it was easy to just crush all that into the last time block and get it done,
Wow.
It'd be like, yeah. Hey, so-and-so, or they've got everything else all figured out. Maybe Triple H would come up and be like, maybe we're in a 6-man, and he would just come in and be like, this is one part, in the finish where everyone's going to come in, do a little smudge. We had an idea. If you were tagged in, boom, boom, boom. I love it. Boom. I got to be like that,
Got it. Just rolled with it. So, dude, you've been doing this for so long, right? At such a high level. But you are still pretty. What's that?
Pun? Is that a pun?
No, but you at such a high level, right? But you're still pretty damn healthy. Did you have any notable injuries throughout your career? And if so, what were they?
Yeah, so I had one surgery my entire life, and that was an ACL and meniscus repair in 2005. Yeah,
one surgery after all these years. That's pretty insane, man.
Yeah, I'm fortunate. It's definitely, I got good genes. I'm durable. I'm tough. That's thank you, mom and dad. But as far as consciously putting an effort forth, it's my stretch routine, I think, that has added all the longevity. My stretch routine is not a warm-up, it's a workout. I will stretch for an hour if I have time before my matches, and that's It's everything to me. It's warming up. It's getting my circulation going. It's doing a body check to find out where I'm injured, because, if my ankle's a little inflamed, I'm going to find out through several positions in my routine, and I'm going to know that. And it's something that nobody else did. Nobody. CM Punk had his stretch routine, not as long as I would stretch, but he had his routine. And Devon Dudley, of all people. Besides that, I never saw anybody else take the time routinely to get on the floor and stretch. DDP saw me doing it way back in '93 in WCW, and he'll tell you, he figured, RVD's taking all these crazy bumps and he's not getting hurt, and the thing he's doing different is stretching. So DDP added that and started focusing on that. He used to tell me, like, but you don't ice. The only thing you're not good at is icing. I don't get it. He would say, why don't you ice when you go through all this trouble? And he's right. I got to be really, really hurt to ice. It's not because I don't believe in it. I don't know. I'm not, it's not something, that I'm quick to do. But that was, boom, that was the birth of DDP yoga right there.
Oh, wow. That's what sparked it?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, man. Wow. So one surgery, and especially with your style, man, I mean, high flying, doing all this crazy stuff. I mean, that's so impressive. Now, so what, over the years, like, what has your training been like, and how has that evolved to this day?
Well, yeah. So throughout my life, I never had the issue that a lot of people have where they want to lose weight because they're overweight. To me, it was always the opposite. When I was in high school, I joined high school wrestling because I wanted to be a pro. I was 165 pounds, and the coach was telling me he thought I could get down to 135. And I was like, dude, I want to weigh 235. And I quit because of that. I looked around. All the great high school wrestlers were skinny, wiry little arms. They would wear a bunch of shirts, make themselves throw up. I would go home and try and eat what I could. I'd put ice cream in a bowl and melt it in the microwave, and because I didn't afford protein powder yet. I was just trying to, whatever I learned at that time, I learned that calories get you big. So I was just trying to shovel it in. That whole mentality probably lasted until I don't know, 2002 or 3 or whatever. Like, I didn't focus as much on adding mass, but I was still always lifting heavy, still pushing my max, on everything. And which got to be difficult on the routine of being on the road of WWE, but I was definitely still doing it when I still got there. I remember in 2001 asking Justin Credible to spot me with 405 on the bench, and he was afraid to do it. And he went and got X-Pac, and they both stood on each side. I was like, dude, I'm not going to make you work. Like, I'm going to get it. I just want you to just be there in case, I was like, I'm going to get 2 or 3 rests, but I'm going to tell you, if I need help, I'll say help, and then I'm not going to be dead. And he was just like, Rob, I can't handle that weight, bro. I was squatting over 5. It wasn't until like my 40s that all of a sudden, I guess my metabolism slowed down. It wasn't as hard to keep my weight the same. It wasn't as much hard work. I got in the business like at 203. And when I was in WCW in 93, I got to 235. And I've always been around that since then. Like, my weight, it'll go up or down, like 5-10 pounds without me even trying. If I go a week and I'm not, eating a little bit more than I want to, or getting a couple scoops of protein in between my meals, then I'll step on the scale sometimes. I'm like, whoa, I'm down to 226. I'm more comfortable, a little bit heavier. So, then I'll be like, okay, I gotta, put a little more effort into it. But it doesn't matter anymore. You know what I mean? I've been up to 250, and that's been a couple times, with a lot of work, but almost always, I can feel my weight. I can almost always win that money. If someone says, what do you weigh? I know, right now it's going to say 234, I'm in touch with my body like that. So eating, eventually, and I always knew the older I got, the more I would learn. the better educated I would be about everything. So my diet, has definitely cleaned up. And my lifting now, because I had a shoulder injury that still gives me problems. It's I've only had one surgery. That doesn't mean I've only been told that I need that one surgery. You know what I mean? I've had several
some more
doctors.
injuries.
Yeah, I mean, it's been recommended on several things, but anyway, because of injuries in my wrist, I broke my wrist in '93, and it doesn't even bend. So it gives me a lot of hard time with lifting weights. So now I am doing a lot of sets of 20 reps. Like 4 sets of 20 reps on something. Which before, when I said I was pushing my max, I used to always pyramid, go heavier. That's a bit different. And in the nutrition, it's always been about protein for me. As an adult, I don't remember ever worrying about how many calories something has. I understood, and I would tell people, if you want to lose weight, you want to burn more calories than you're taking in. And guess what? That's probably going to happen. If you want to gain weight, try and take in more calories than you're burning up, especially if you don't care and you're just bulking up. But for me, what really stuck was the protein formula of, if you're an athlete and you want to maintain your body weight, you should try to get 1 gram of protein for every pound of body weight. This is super old school, but this is what I still use today. If you want to put on some muscle, then you want to try to get 2 grams of protein for every pound of body weight. Now, that's not easy because, as I understand it, you can only metabolize like maybe 50 grams of protein every like 3 hours or so. And anything else is going to go to waste. So that means if you really want to work hard at it, you're going to maximize your intake every single chance you get. And I've never been that serious about it, but I know plenty of people like bodybuilders that have an alarm set. Maybe it's every 2.5 hours. They want to get a head start, and they know exactly, like, okay, 1 chicken breast, 2 spoonfuls of yogurt, 1 forkful of green beans, and this is going to give me exactly what my body can take. So that's the formula I still use, and it's not easy. Like, I get about 250 grams of protein a day. Sometimes I'm closer to 200, sometimes I'm closer to 300. But it does take a little bit of work. I take scoops of the powder sometimes just to get the extra protein in between my meals. And that's what I stick by. It's not easy. I was telling somebody this on the set of Wrong Side of Town, my movie, my only starring role in a movie. And somebody was like, "What? How the hell you get that much protein?" And I said, "Batista," I said, "how many grams of protein do you get in a day?" 300. 300 grams of protein in a day.
That's a big boy.
Yeah, but that's a lot, and that can't even be twice. Wait, that doesn't even sound that much. No, I think he said 600. I'm sorry, 600 grams of protein. I said 300. That's not. No wonder you're not amazed. Sorry. Anyway, 600, and I don't even know if there's enough hours. I know people. The big guy, Tom, that introduced me to the Sheik. He was a power lifter, and when he would be bulking up for competition, he would set his alarm so that he would wake up every 2.5, 3 hours in the middle of the night and then just drink like a protein shake and go back to bed. And one time his wife, we were there having this talk, and his wife said, yeah, and it all goes down to your belly. And he goes, "It doesn't all go to my belly." She said, "No, some of it goes to your ass."
Shit. And so, I wanted to also ask you to shift gears for a second. So
Whoa. Before we shift,
yeah.
let me just, if I could, I just got to mention, because Trifecta is my food sponsor.
Yeah, of course.
It's so great to me. I got to mention, so I eat clean now, but they make it easy. For the longest time, I was doing the prep meals, and a lot of times there'll be shit in there that I would never eat. I don't even know what it is, and I read it like, what? I don't water nuts, a lot of vegetables, and a lot of it was like, I'm kind of picky, so I would eat it, but I would also eat a lot of groceries I bought. Recently, I switched, so I get a la carte from Trifecta now. Nutrition. So every week we get like a package of bison burgers. We get a couple packages of ground chicken. We get a couple packages of salmon, and then a couple packages of turkey burgers, and that's it. And each one has the same 29 grams of protein per serving, and 4 servings per package. And it makes it so easy because now I'll go and buy produce, I buy spinach and make chicken salad or whatever. It makes it so easy, and so everything that I eat is good for my body. I don't do a lot of snacking. I never have. I always think like if there's a cupcake and people are munching on it, I always think like, well, that's not gonna do anything good for me unless I feel like my weight's down. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna figure out. But normally I eat. I think I eat to live more than live to eat. It's always been like some work to try to eat right. So a lot of times I wish I had more of an appetite and like eating everything. But for me, a lot of it, is getting it in. I can eat very bland or whatever, but Trifecta Nutrition is, they got all and they'll do the different programs. If you say, no, I want to, paleo diet, or I want to, whatever, like they have all that too. But I got to plug them. They've been great helping. And so now, I just turned 50 and I just kind of switched up to eating even more healthy. And I mean, I like what I see in the mirror,
That's awesome. I hear great things about Trifecta. Jay Ferrugia is a friend of mine. I think you were on his show a few years back, and he speaks very highly of them. So I hear they got great stuff. I haven't tried them yet, but I will.
Cool.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Go ahead and switch gears.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, so a lot of pro wrestlers, it's definitely a known thing, the use of painkillers and ibuprofen and stuff like that, especially back in the day. And you have always been an advocate, at least what I've heard you talk about, for cannabis, marijuana, CBD, THC, right? So talk a little bit about that and how that has helped you. Because, look, I mean, you've had some bumps and bruises, but one surgery over all this time, to talk about concussions and whatnot, because I've heard you speak about that before, and I think that's important for the audience to hear.
Cool. Yeah, it's important to me. Concussions is something that still is kind of a secret conversation, unfortunately. And I mean, I got to say this, throughout my whole career, you're out there traveling, working for different promoters. You become your own doctor and your own manager, and you decide whether you can work or not. You know what I mean? Whether you're going to tell anybody about how you're feeling or not. That becomes all your decision. So I had hundreds of concussions and I didn't tell anybody. It wasn't looked at as being that serious back then. That was before we studied them and knew that long-term damage could arise from concussions. But
how many concussions do you think you had, Rob, over the years?
So here's the thing: is
say.
a lot of people don't know exactly what to count as a concussion, and I count any time that I get either hit in the head or my head jars in such a way that my senses are scrambled and my reality is off, for any period of time. If I've been hit, I get hit in the back of the head and everything would be like spinning around for a few seconds. I'd have to like shake it off. I've been hit in the head and everything's double for a long time. I've been hit, and it's always like a hit in the head, but it's usually me taking a bump and me letting the back of my head slam or whatever. I got so many different reactions that I wonder if it was different parts of my brain, because sometimes I remember with wrestling with Rey Mysterio one time, bam, and I took a bump and everything was in slow motion. And I looked at him and I wanted to tell him, that I wasn't okay for a second. And I was trying to tag him. And I was just like, Ray. And it was so weird, but sometimes sound would go out.
Wow.
That's what, boom, and usually shake it off in a few seconds, usually. Not always, but usually. I've probably had a handful that lasted like into the next day, probably not more than like 5. I've had 2 where I could not hold on to any memory whatsoever. I've seen plenty of those. I've caused plenty of those where afterwards somebody has to explain to the person that suffered the concussion over and over and over again. They got to keep telling them, and they can't retain it. I've been there a couple of times myself too. So at one time, after Chris Nowinski started really explaining to me and helping educate me on concussions, at one time I went through and I counted about 500.
Holy shit.
That was so long ago, I don't count anymore. I try to avoid it now, of course, but it still happens sometimes. Sometimes, bam, like, oh, did I do it again? Motherfucker. Because in 2016, I had just the most simple, like, it was a roll through kind of thing where the back of my head hit some really weird arm drag that Pentagon threw at me. I came up, everything was double. And I was like, I grabbed the ref just like I always do. And I said, whoa, just give me a second. And I tried to shake it off, couldn't shake it off. Finished the match, couldn't shake it off. Ended up waiting until everyone left the building because I was driving and I was trying to wait till my vision came back. And I ended up driving with one eye closed because I could see fine out of either eye, but out of both eyes, everything was up. And that lasted for months and months. I had to go to vision therapy, and I learned a lot about concussions, with the neurologist and all these, CAT scans, MRIs I was getting. And luckily, we had a camera rolling the whole time. I made a great documentary out of it called Headstrong that's available on Amazon. And it's important for me that we continue to talk about concussions so that we can learn more about it, so that we can prevent for one thing, suicides. We can prevent the road that many of my peers have taken. A lot of athletes, they go from severe concussion damage, it seems like depression, acting a little out of character, and then suicide. A lot of my peers that didn't go down that road accidentally overdosed from prescription medicine, So it's important to me that we further our education in that, and I think it has a lot to do possibly with CBDs. I mean, there's other answers too. And I've done all kinds of stuff, especially since I've been researching it, from oxygen therapy to stem cells to, CBG to all different herbs. I'm going to get together a product that I think can help a lot of people and put it out through RVD CBD. That was my motivation for starting my own CBD company. I paid a lot of attention to the cannabis plant for many years when a lot of people weren't paying attention to that. I feel like, as far as I was talking before about contributing to the business, having a third brand on WWE, how about this? I think that I've helped educate the current wrestlers, one, on a safer alternative to prescription drugs, and two, because everyone is trying to be RVD now with their acrobatic wrestling style. It's no longer 300-pound guys that don't leave their feet that would wrestle and then go to the bar and drink every single night. You can't party like that anymore, because the matches, the standard is so athletic, and the wrestlers now are so much more of a corporation, as far as equal rights and all kinds of stuff, where wrestling wasn't really meant to be when it was a closed door society back in its infancy and for many years during its growth. So I think that hopefully I'm going to help the wrestlers live longer by staying away from the traps. Cannabis, you don't have to smoke cannabis if it's not for you. It does have a lot of potential. There's been studies that show cannabis smokers actually live longer than non-smokers. And that's something that now the world is more open to. Years down the road, they're going to be more open to it, because CBDs are still a new study. The cannabis plant has over 100 different elements to it. We call them cannabinoids. And people only knew about THC because it's illegal to study the plant since 1936. It's been illegal. So now we're studying the plant. We're learning about all these different cannabinoids, results that we can get while trimming away some of the results that we don't want by doing different combinations with these different cannabinoids, and it's great. And what we'll have is something that'll help, just not with with the long-term concussion damage, but also, like the encephalopathy, but also if it helps with that, it's going to help with depression, and it's going to help with like amnesia. You know, I can't remember what it's called when you can't remember.
Alzheimer's.
Yeah, thank you. Very similar things are going on in the brain with all of that, as far as like these proteins that sit and interrupt your information highways in your brain. It's something that it's an area that we need a lot of improvement on. It's going to help a lot of people that deal with depression, and like I said, hopefully it'll extend the lives of a lot of my peers. I certainly don't want to go down the road as a lot of my friends. I don't have a whole lot of them left to call that are long-term friends anymore. I think about, oh yeah, he's dead, and that's a reality, but I don't think it has to be much longer in the future. These guys nowadays, they're not out partying every night. They're not doing handfuls of somas and washing it down with beers and Valiums and stuff. They're not doing it. You're still going to have some of it on the indie scene. You're still going to have some of the older generation until they die out, but that's not part of the industry now. And it's about being professional and whether someone's a woman or whether they're gay or whatever, it's not like it used to be where, they could just throw their personal feelings around and push someone out the door with them. So, it's a more professional environment, and definitely these kids are going to live longer than my generation. And I will take credit for a lot of that.
Well, you should. You're doing a lot of amazing work, man. Where could somebody get RVD CBD?
Right there, rvdcbd.com. We're getting them in the stores because of COVID. That's been a bit of a challenge, but they're out there. If you live in Atlanta, or in California or in Nevada, I would love to have it in every store. And the great thing is I can stand behind my product and say it's the best because of the reviews. I might have got into this thinking, this is something to put some energy into and see how it goes. But hearing from all the people how much it helps them, and especially when nothing else worked, because my stuff is different and I went about it that way. I didn't want to just put my name on on a pain cream that was already made for someone else. I wanted specifically, I wanted to have a lot of menthol in it. So I said, look, add more, and I tested it, add more, double strength in the CBD. Stop it, P. And so people are telling me that they get results, even though they tried other stuff and it didn't work. And that just, boom, that goes straight to the heart. Like, I've never been part of something with more positive energy than Headstrong and RVD CBD. That's just like like having all these people tell me that that it's helped them, and that they're glad they can go to someone that they trust, that knows a lot about the area, and that stands by high quality, because there is a lot of bogus stuff out there, and everybody reacts differently to everything anyway. So that's the best part, is all the reviews. I'm gonna start streaming and just reading the reviews pretty soon, just to give people energy, because it's very heartwarming to know.
That's great, man, and that's fulfilling work for sure. And I do have one last question for you here. So if you can go back in time and give a 20-year-old RVD some advice, what would that be?
I would definitely tell myself to be more open-minded, be honest, always. I don't know, there's this book called The Four Agreements. I would say read that book, The Four Agreements, because one of the agreements is to be impeccable with your word, and that goes so far. But most importantly, be honest, and it's okay. And part of being successful is knowing what you don't know. Like I said before, I was stubborn to take advice from certain people. If they called me green, I'd be like, this guy's been wrestling 10 years and he sucks. I've been a year. I'm already not as green as him. I would be a lot more realistic with the fact that I don't know everything, be open to everything, And I wish everybody, I wish would take this to heart. It's okay that everybody has their own values. If everybody would be okay with that, there would be no conflicts at all on the planet. People can't understand that other people have different values. They have to. My values work best for me. They're created and designed by my principles to give me the most out of life. Some of them can be and will be tweaked, throughout life. That's as you travel down the highway of life, you have to look at things different because you're in a different place. Your perspective is different. So that's the thing. It starts out when you're a kid. Kids don't realize that other kids can have their own values. Why are you wearing those shoes? That's stupid, And when you're in a locker room, it's not much higher IQ of conversation than that. Wrestlers are so bored, they just pick out something, like, dude, did you pay for that haircut? And then they'll just focus on it for a while. And everyone knows each other's business way too much in that kind of environment. Now that I'm outside of it, it can really be in touch with my own values. That's the number one thing everyone has to realize, is that it's okay that other people have different values than you. Doesn't mean if that person's a child molester and a murderer that their values are okay. But it does mean don't be so unshakably certain that you're absolutely positively right and there's no chance whatsoever that you could be wrong, especially if it's something where many, many, many people disagree. I don't get how people can get political and totally know for a fact that the other 50% are complete idiots. I hate even thinking about what kind of state of mind you have to be in to think that way.
Totally. That's
Listen
great.
up, 20-year-old RVD. And don't tell people you're Jean-Claude Van Damme's cousin, because you're not.
Well, Rob, so rvdcbd.com. Where else could everyone find you? Where else do you want to point them?
Yeah, so I'm everywhere on social media on the Real RVD. I'm going to be 2021 is about content. I got some stuff I'm not really talking about yet, but I'm going to be cleaning up and utilizing my YouTube page. And like I said, I'm going to start streaming soon, working on plans for doing that. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, The Real RVD. The YouTube, I can't even find my own YouTube page. It says The Real RVD, but it's under something else. But also follow RVDCBD on Instagram at RVDCBD. And that's about it, dude. Always moving forward. I know it's sucks for a lot of people. It's easy to get depressed nowadays if you think about all the reasons to. So don't, because it's just going to make traveling in time from point A to point B the same amount of time, but you're not going to enjoy it nearly as much focusing on all the bad. So, fix what you have to. Don't worry about shit you can't fix, that you have no control over. And, try to make the most of every day.
Control what you can control, right? Rob.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, like I said, you could focus, you could do a lot of hypothetical, depressing thoughts if you wanted to. And, world's kind of fucked up right now. And, we're going to get through it though. We're going to get ahead. We're seeing light at the end of the tunnel. It's been 2020 was pretty ugly. But find sources of happiness. Find things that make you happy, that aren't harmful to others. Whether it's a hobby, whether it's whatever, whether it's like comic books, or whether it's getting outside, or whatever it is. It was a hobby you used to do and you don't do anymore, but you remember, hey, I used to get a lot of good energy out of that. Put a little more energy into that instead of stuff that you cannot control.
Absolutely.
Well, go buy some RVD CBD.
Hell yeah. Well, Rob, I really appreciate you, man. It was a true honor to sit here and talk to you. And I just want to thank you again for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate it.
Cool. Right on, Chris. Enjoyed the conversation.